Welcome, my name is Dani Walker. Today I'll be sharing with you every gown Miss Universe Venezuela wore for the past 5 years. This is a brand new series on my channel, so if you'd like to see lots more of it, then don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification so you know when new episodes come out, and of course, share the channel with a friend as we near 90,000 subscribers. We are taking it all the way back to 2017 when Casey won her national title and earned that right to represent Venezuela. She wore a beautiful white evening gown, and this evening gown to me just says elegance and royalty. Those are the vibes that I get from this gown. She also was a bit ahead of the trend here. So in recent years at Miss Universe, for example, we've seen a few contestants wear some sort of glove for the evening gown competition. Of course, we did see that decades ago in the past, but a glove is definitely a style choice nowadays. It's not the norm, so it's interesting to look back at her 2017 competition and see that she chose to wear gloves with this evening gown. Now, I will also mention that she decided to take off the gloves for the finals, and I'm not sure why she made that choice or who urged her to make that choice. But this evening gown was absolutely spectacular. It's in this pop over style, so the top is more oversized than the fitted bottom is. So these types of gowns still are able to give you shape and a waist, but they are a little bit more reminiscent of years past and vintage styles. Wearing her hair up for the national final made a lot of sense in this gown because there's a lot going on and all the attention is coming up towards the neck. So this was perfectly styled and honestly for me one of the most royal gowns that we've seen on a recent Miss Venezuela. In Miss Universe, she decided to stick with a white evening gown for the preliminary competition. And this gown is a lot more typical for what we see at Miss Universe. It's fitted, it's tight, and it is covered in stones. It's a really, really beautiful gown. I feel like it's an easy choice to make. If this was one of your options for Miss Universe, you could easily say, yes, of course I can place in that gown. And she did. But during the final competition, she switched evening gowns. Now, when I saw the finals gown, to me, it looked a little bit bridal. I don't know if you got that feeling too, but a lot of people, I think, had some mixed reviews on this gown, myself included. It is beautiful and it is very elegant, but I actually would rather have seen her use her finals gown for prelims because I still think that she could have placed, and then wear the strapless, tight-fitted stoned gown for finals. For me, that's the choice I would have suggested or made for myself. As we move on to our next queen, I just want you to keep in mind that 2017 preliminary evening gown as we're moving on. So in 2018, Miss Venezuela wore this gorgeous, just spectacular, fully stoned gown. So what this looks like to me are on Swarovski AB crystals. It's spectacular. Even though, yes, we see fully stoned gowns, I get that. This gown in itself was unique in its own way. Sometimes at Miss Venezuela, they share with you the designer of this gown. I didn't see that in this particular year, but it's been one of my personal favorite gowns that has won Miss Venezuela. And it's interesting because to me, this gown is just the more structured version of their 2017 Miss Universe preliminary gown. So if you look at them, the lines on the bodice are sort of similar. Now, obviously the prelim gown was a lot more white, and this gown has more of a sheer base or a nude base to it. So it's gonna change the look a little bit, but this gown, when I saw her win in this, I just thought she could wear that to Miss Universe. And I know that that's not the norm, but when I just thought it could be done though. Just imagine that gown on the Miss Universe stage. It would have been show-stopping. Now, although she didn't wear that gown, the gown that she did wear for the preliminary competition and for finals at Miss Universe was still a great choice for her to wear. So I've talked about this gown in other episodes where I shared with you my top 10 favorite sheer evening gowns, and you can check that out. I'm gonna link it in the corner. But this evening gown is very reminiscent of a Bob Mackie gown that was worn by Cher, and it was deemed the naked dress. So it's this ultra sheer evening gown, but her version of it that she competed in doesn't have the feathers. And I think that if it did have the feathers, then it would have just been this outright, this is pretty much the naked gown, right? It would have been almost exactly the same. So I think it was nice that they actually excluded the feathers. It really didn't need it. It still really picked up light well on the Miss Universe stage. I do like that they kept her hairstyle simple and consistent from nationals into the finals, because it's just like something unique about her that not every contestant can rock, that beautiful long straight hair. And so that was really nice to see for her for the international competition. Make sure to share in the comments who wore your favorite evening gown from this episode. In 2019, once again, we see a queen who had the same gown for her prelims as she did for her finals. And this gown, once again, gosh, these gowns in Venezuela are next level. And I know that if you wore these gowns in another country or at a regional or a state competition, they would probably be just too much. It would look over the top. But since this is the standard in Venezuela, they don't stand out in a way that makes them look over the top. But these gowns are quite opulent. Once again though, when I saw this evening gown, I loved the style of it. The slit was great, the high neck, the really interesting asymmetrical neckline. All of it for me just knocked it out of the park. It was a standout. Once again, one of my favorite gowns throughout that year. And it's really hard to pick even a favorite gown for Miss Venezuela because there's so many incredible styles that grace that stage. This one, I believe, was made by Carlos Perez, by the way, so if you were wondering, the designer. I have mixed feelings when she went to Miss Universe. So let me show you first. Here is her preliminary evening gown. This gown is beautiful, but it's not something that you wouldn't expect to see on a Miss Venezuela. So when I saw it, I was like, this is beautiful, but also I think it looked a little bit big on her. If you look at the side, there's just some gapping around the waist, and that surprised me for Venezuela because usually the fit of their gowns it's very well done. So I think that the gown itself, yes, beautiful, well styled, all that, but I wish there would have been a little bit more shape to the skirt for her. And like I said, it didn't surprise me to see this gown on her, and I kind of wanted to see something that would have made me go, ooh, what an interesting choice for Venezuela. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see her recompete for finals, so I don't know if there was a second evening gown choice or if this would have been the one that she wore. If you're here because you're a pageant contestant and you want to learn more about pageantry and how to win your next competition, then check out my free pageant prep course that's in the description below. In 2020, Miss Venezuela wore a really, really sexy gown. I just think the opening of this gown in the center was, ooh, honestly, I probably would have drawn that in a little bit more, and it really surprised me. But gosh, how many times can I say that the gowns are my favorite? Because they're just they're inventive. That's what they are. I don't care how many silver, white, nude, crystallized gowns that they wear. They're still beautiful in their own way. So this gown was made by Douglas Tapia, and he's made a lot of gowns that have graced the Miss Venezuela stage. And this gown was made out of the sheer crystallized fabric, and what I really liked was that high neckline as well as the elongated sleeves. So it didn't just stop at her wrist, they sort of extended and then they were crystallized. Then the back of the gown, you already think, okay, this is beautiful. Then you see her rotate and you see the back where she has these just draping oversized stones going down her back. And as I mentioned, that evening gown was very sexy, and even for Miss Universe, I think it would have been a little too sexy to bring something like that to the Miss Universe stage. But I was really surprised by the selection for finals. It was a beautiful gown, but I felt that for Universe, it was just so safe. So safe. And we didn't get to see her recompete in the top 10, so I don't know if there was another evening gown as an option. It wouldn't surprise me if there were. It's nice, it's fitted along the hips and the legs, and I like though that the bottom of it was sheer. It had this nice little train, but I just thought the overall style, just the off the shoulder sleeves, it's something that we see a lot. I think it's something that we see a lot more of in youth pageantry. And I think that one of the things that makes the evening gowns so unique at Miss Universe, or really at any of these international competitions, is how they change up the necklines and how they get really creative with that. And so this gown really surprised me, and I would love to have seen her in something different for finals if she were to place. But what do you think? Or what do you know about this gown? Leave it in the comments. 2021 was a very unique year because of the timing of Miss Universe, so there wasn't time to hold a national competition, and I think feel prepared enough to send a title holder to Miss Universe. So what they did was they appointed Miss Venezuela in 2021 And she competed though in the 2020 pageant. And it's funny because I look back and I totally had forgot that she competed in the 2020 pageant. When I looked at this footage, I was like, oh my gosh, wait, this was one of my favorite looks of the entire competition. I did a recap about this and you can check it out. And I think I talked about it where I loved the feathers that were wrapped around her. I just thought that's something that really you're kind of only gonna see at Miss Venezuela. That's gonna fly there. But it was just one of my favorite looks. I thought it was so fun. It kind of reminded me of yesteryear and vintage evening gowns when women would wear stoles when they would go out, or some sort of wrap. And I really liked it, and I liked that it was a part of her performance, and for that she was one of my favorites. I really liked the makeup and the hair for her national competition. And when she went to Miss Universe, I don't know if she was doing her own hair and makeup or if she was getting help from the team backstage, but it was kind of very dark in the crease, and I felt like it made her eyes look really, really like deep set. And when I saw her makeup, that's why I wasn't even thinking back to her national final, because I felt like it was such a different look from the national final, and I much preferred the makeup at her national competition. So here's how she looked for Miss Universe, and the gown was very beautiful, and anyone would be fortunate to wear an evening gown like this at their competition. But I think it was such a safe style, and I feel like that's what's happened in recent years by Venezuela, why we haven't seen them back in the top 5 year after year after year, kind of how we used to see them, is because they're bringing what they've always brought. And consistency is good and it's great. But now I think that we're seeing this shift where there's a lot more room for interesting evening gowns. And just look at Catriona when she won. She won in a lava gown, which could have gone wrong in so many ways, but it didn't. It's a very unique gown. If you look at it, look at Zozabini's gown that she won in. It was a mixture of browns and blues. These gowns are not your everyday pageant gown anymore. I think India this year, that gown was safe, okay? And I'm not saying that it won't happen, that you won't win in a safe gown, but I just feel that there's so much more room now to wear styles that are a little riskier, a little more interesting, maybe have some meaning behind them. And I'd like to see Venezuela send their representative this upcoming year in something that I wouldn't expect to see a Miss Venezuela. And what do I expect to see her in? I expect to see her in a nude or a white gown, or maybe a silver or something like this, just fully stoned, that's it. I want to see them get a little bit more daring. Those are the gowns from the past 5 years, but if you want to see more in other countries, first comment which country you want to see next, and make sure to check out my most recent ones for the Philippines and for USA if you love content like this. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you at the next episode.